So that's it. Superintendent Bauer, if you want to begin with
Great.
Recognition and information.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We have 3 things on the agenda. I will share my screen. Okay. Okay. So the first step, the first recognition tonight and first item to highlight is the recognition for Project 351. So Principal Colantoni, are you on the call? You are on the call, correct?
I am. Good evening, everyone.
So I just want to say how proud we are from Danvers Public Schools. And I don't want to steal your thunder. You're going to do the presentation, but it's just a wonderful opportunity for us to be connected, and we have an ambassador. So I'm going to turn this over to you to talk about our new ambassador and give some feedback or some background in terms of the Project 351.
Sure, and I can always steal my thunder, Superintendent Bauer. No worries. So Project 351, for those who are not familiar, been about 15 years now where this has been a statewide initiative to really find ways to acknowledge and bring 8th graders across the state. It's called 351 because an 8th grader, the goal is an 8th grader from every community across the state is identified to come together for a Saturday afternoon in Boston and meet whoever the governor might be at the time and some other local politicians and state leaders. It's really a day of service learning, but also a launch day for students to get involved in giving back to their community. This has been going on for quite a while. So on Saturday, January 13th, we had an opportunity to send a student from Holton Richmond to represent us. And so the next slide, I'm proud to highlight who our student was, Kyle Hampy from Holton Richmond. So we had asked our staff at the school back in September to really start thinking about a quiet leader. And that's Project 351 really asked for a student who is kind of the unsung hero at the school, somebody kind of behind the scenes, does the right thing every day, just kind of that quiet leadership trait. So we asked our staff to really give some thought about that leading up to our nomination in December. And I'm really happy and excited to talk about Kyle. Kyle couldn't join us today. He's a very busy guy. After school, he was doing a math competition in the cafeteria. He's currently at basketball practice. He was really disappointed to not be here tonight, but he's certainly willing to come back another time and talk about his experience, but also the work that he'll continue to do with his service project. And so talking to Kyle since last week about his experience, a few quotes from Kyle. He truly was shocked and humbled to be known that he was represented to serve the school. When we called him down in the office, he was super nervous, didn't know what he was being called down for. So a very, very humble young man. So he's very honored to represent Danvers. He felt a real sense of accomplishment. He spent Saturday afternoon, again, meeting 8th graders from across the state, and they spent time making care packages for veterans, some paintings for the Pine Street Inn, and then they spent time preparing food for an outreach program in Boston to support the homeless. And that was all to kind of spark interest for them to take on a project for the rest of the year. And so Kyle will be joining forces with some other local 8th graders in the area and to work with Cradles to Crayons. And we're excited to kind of share progress throughout the rest of the year and how Kyle's doing and invite him to a future meeting.
Thank you. This is awesome. If he wants to come back, we would love to hear more of his personal experience. We can definitely set that up. But what an awesome recognition.
Yeah, he is super excited, and he's very, very interested in coming back soon to talk about his experience.
I've known Kyle for close to 8 years, and he's one of my son's closest friends. And I really think the teachers and administrators at Holton Richmond really made a decision, the right decision, by selecting Kyle to represent our town. He just has such a genuine nature about him that's positive and just really impacts everyone around him. And I know this recognition will just be the beginning of many more successes for him. So I was really excited to see that he was recognized for this. So thank you, Adam, and your team for that decision.
Absolutely. And the neat thing about this is he'll now join a network. It's not just a one and done year. He'll become part of an alumni and also be able to connect with future eighth graders at Holton Richmond who get identified. So it's a really nice legacy to continue.
I would also say the same thing that Alice did, and he's also a family friend of ours, and he's a great kid overall. And quiet leader is probably a great way to describe Kyle. I know that that's what you're looking for, but he is totally a quiet leader, and I'd be wrong if I didn't say that he's also an amazing guitar player. Also, and,
Hey, Josh, I forgot to mention that we need to have him give us a guitar solo when he
he's and on top of all of his leadership and in sports, he's also an amazing guitarist and just a great kid. So I was happy to hear that he was being recognized and honored. So nice job, Kyle.
I think the great news is, as Principal Colantoni said, is it's not just the one and done, and being involved in the service project. The hope is that when he comes to the high school next year, he'll bridge that gap and work with Principal Federico here at the high school to bring a project and connect, with again, bringing the eighth grade ambassador next year and bring it together. It's a great bridge. It's a great program, and we're so honored to have him being named an ambassador and looking forward to, we'll get him back for an update on this project when we're in-person school committee. So nice job, Principal Colantoni and your team, and we're thankful for Kyle's appointment and look forward to hearing more.
All right. Thank you, everyone.
All right. Next up, Mary Wormers will bring us to our curriculum and equity summary from the subcommittee and further work with our curriculum. So Mary, take it away.
Great, thanks. So earlier tonight, like an hour ago, we had our curriculum and equity subcommittee meeting. So I would just like to take a few minutes to share some of the work that we talked about in that meeting. So in that meeting, we divided it up into two different parts. One would be an update on the equity work we're doing in the district, and then another part would be the curriculum. And tonight, for our curriculum update, we are having Julie Pasternak and a team of elementary school teachers present about the reading program. So just to start, I would like to share some of the equity work we're doing. And a lot of our work in the district, Dan, if you go to the next slide, has been through the Culturally Responsive Practices Leadership Academy, and it's called the CPRLA. We've been part of that work for 3 years, and so this slide represents the goal that the Department of Education's Academy has, which is to support district leaders to learn the foundational content of and embed culturally responsive and equitable practices across the districts. And then, so each year there was a different focus. The first year was kind of a foundational year. We did a lot of professional learning and worked to use one of their tools, which was called the equity planning tool, which really helped us look at any kind of system or structure or policy that we were going to bring into the district. We kind of use that tool to help look at each one of those things, like a structure or a system or a policy, from multiple viewpoints, from different stakeholder viewpoints. So it was a great tool to learn. In year 2, we worked on having an operational framework, which we'll go over in a minute. And then this year, they're doing a lot of hands-on work with us. They're coming into our district and looking, visiting schools and looking at the classrooms and looking to see if, how our work on like sense of belonging and safe and supportive schools are working, and then also helping us solve like a challenge that we have in the district. So I'll talk about that in a few minutes. The next slide. So in year 2, we worked to build this operational framework, which our hope will also lead into our strategic planning that we'll be doing with Dan coming up in the next school year as he finishes out his entry plan, and as we move into strategic planning for the future. This framework will help us do that. So this kind of culturally responsive practices happens not just in teaching and learning in our curriculum, although many of the things that we talk about, it is embedded in our teaching and learning, but that also culturally responsive practices have to happen in our school-wide systems and structures, like scheduling and some of the work that we do with discipline and things like that, so that we're really focusing on and making sure that groups of students. Then when we move into domain number 3, caregiver and community partnerships, making sure we're equitable in that and that we're accessible by all stakeholder groups. And then finally, in domain 4 is like our district policies. So how are the culturally responsive practices reflected in our district policies? So there's a lot of work to be done, and it would take multiple years to really implement this type of a framework. But this is a great starting point for us to have identified these 4 domains and some of the work that we strive to do in slide. So that was year 2. And so we just developed, by the end of it, it was June, by the time we finalized that kind of framework to put that together. So this school year, we're starting to kind of roll that out to different groups. And as well as with the CPRLA consultants, we are having them do our site visits where they've been in December 8th, they were in at the Highlands and Thorpe schools at the elementary level to visit some classrooms and talk to principals in the schools and kind of get a sense of each of those elementary schools. And then in February, they'll be visiting Holton Richmond Middle School and Danvers High School to do the same. And then also, starting today, we started working on a case study where the consultants that are working with us are really want us to identify a challenge that our district is facing involving issues of racial equity, discrimination, or bias, or looking at the performance of a specific demographic group. So we started that work today. We haven't honed in exactly on one problem. We still are going to meet on February 1st to kind of finalize that. And the consultants will work with us through the spring to help us as we tackle that challenge. So that, in the nutshell, is the district level work we're doing in equity. But then also at each of our schools, as you know, in their school improvement plans, there's work that's ongoing. So if you go to the next slide, Dan. At the elementary level, we continue with our culturally responsive read alouds and the ADL's anti-bias building blocks curriculum. So that's done along with some social emotional learning lessons. So that's done throughout the year. Then we also have, each school has a sense of belonging team, which is a team of teachers in that school, along with the principal and social workers, that they really work on making sure that our school is safe and supportive for all students at that level. So they meet at the school level, but then we also meet at the district level to talk about what that work looks like. At the middle school, we have restorative practices happening in form of circles. So the Project Talk has the student circles happen. They're kind of restorative. There are also some SEL practices that happen in those circles. So that happens once every 7 days at the Holton Richmond Project Talk. And then also we brought in a consultant that has been working with us for multiple years, Camilla Drummond, and she's working with a group of students to have conversations on race and equity. And she's been a great facilitator for those students. At the high school level, we also have restorative practices. Most of those happen, though, around some disciplines that have happened. Just not only do they get a consequence with their discipline, but they also have a restoration kind of activity that they do as well with either the teachers or other students. We also are a strong system or structure in our high school, the community block, where lots of like equity work happens. And it's just been a great way for Danvers High School to really strengthen the school student climate and culture in the building. And that's, you've heard a lot about it. We've done lots of presentation on what happens during the community block. And then finally, outside of the school day, we have student groups like Next Gen Issues to Action and Women of the World who tackle equity work both in the school and then outside into the larger community. You often see at events, you'll see these groups presenting. Next Gen was at the MLK celebration. We had Issues to Actions on some of our heritage, our Latinx heritage celebration in the fall. So they work not just in the school, but also in the community. And then finally, we are again partnering with Northeastern Center for Study of Sport and Society to continue doing those workshops that we started 2 years ago that Adam Federico brought in for them. But it's been a wonderful thing for our student athletes to participate in. So that's a nutshell, our equity work. What I really want to get to, though, too, is the elementary curriculum update, because we have a good presentation on our reading program, and I'm going to turn it over to Julie and the team of elementary school teachers.
Thanks, Mary. Good evening, everyone. Dan, can you flip to the next slide, please? Okay, so hopefully the graphic on the top of the slide, it looks familiar. I'm just going to ground this presentation in sort of the research and where all these changes are coming from. But essentially, the current research on reading can be explained through this model. And the idea being that there are two components to reading. You need to have word recognition and you need to have language comprehension. And word recognition is truly my ability to decode the words in front of me. So I could be a strong decoder and I could read through an entire paragraph and not make a single mistake, but have no idea what I just read. And we see that happens. And so the other component to this work is that I need to have strong language comprehension. I need to have vocabulary, background knowledge, oral language, all of those pieces. I need to have both of those components in order to have strong reading comprehension. I can't just be able to decode words. And I could know everything under the whole planet, but if I can't decode the words in front of me, I'm also not going to have strong reading comprehension. So I really need both of those components working together to increase my reading comprehension. And as you also know, we had to pick what we are going to focus on first. This is a sort of a big project to think about. And what I decided to focus on first was the word recognition part and really solidifying our phonics instruction so that we could really ensure that all students leaving elementary school could read and decode words. So we implemented a new phonics curriculum, kindergarten through 5th grade this year. We piloted it last spring at Riverside, implemented it K through 5 across the 5 elementary schools this year, 95% core phonics. And it's really based on the ideas that phonics instruction needs to be explicit and needs to be systematic. So all 5 schools, there is a continuum of how students learn how to read, right? First, I need my letter sounds. Then I can move to basic CVC words, consonant, vowel, consonant. Then I can move all the way up to multisyllabic words. So all of us need to be speaking the same language of where is the student at, what's the next skill they need to master in order to move through this continuum of learning how to read. So we have that in place. I taught a 5th grade lesson today at Highlands. It was the kids were building, they were working on morphology and they were building multisyllabic words using Greek roots. It was fantastic. So we have that going kindergarten through 5th grade. Again, very explicit, very direct instruction, multiple opportunities for practice and feedback. We bought that curriculum this fall. We bought a tier 1 component, so every student's getting grade level phonics instruction every day. But we also bought a tier 2 component, and it's aligned to the tier 1. So the routine, so if I'm a student who's, say, in 4th grade, I'm getting my 4th grade curriculum, but I'm also, through the MTSS structure, I'm also getting a tier 2 curriculum if I still have phonics gaps and skills that are not solidified, using the same routines that I'm used to from my tier 1 curriculum, but the skills are where I need them to be. And so we heavily invested in that side of the simple view of reading, and making sure that we really need to ensure. The big push there was that if kids learn the skills, the decoding skills that they need in K and 1 in those younger grades, it's much harder to catch a kid up later. It takes longer amount of time to catch a kid up later than if we can really, really ensure that our youngest students have the decoding skills that they need. It's much more efficient at the younger grades to accomplish that. So that was our major focus this year. As you also know, there's this whole other really important side to reading comprehension. And if you're following along in the Boston Globe and in the media in the last couple of years around the science of reading, there's been, I feel like, a lot of press that the science of reading is really about phonics. It's not just about phonics. Yes, it's about phonics, and you're not going to have reading comprehension if you can't decode the words in front of you. But there's this whole other really important piece that isn't getting as much press around the language comprehension piece. And I need to have vocabulary. I need to have knowledge. I need to have oral language. And I can't wait as a reader I can't wait. I can still access that content even if my decoding skills aren't yet at grade level. And it's not, we can't wait. We need to be building both skills simultaneously. It's not that you learn how to decode and then you get to read all this really cool stuff and learn and build your background knowledge. And for a long time, I feel like we were taught that first you learn to read and then you read to learn. Well, we need to be learning how to read, but we also need to be building our background knowledge, our vocabulary, our oral language, because that's an also really important part of reading comprehension. You need both components. And so, anyway, okay, I'm going on a tangent. Okay, Dan, can you go to the next slide, sir? Okay, so why did we focus on knowledge? There are there are a lot of reading curriculums out there. The science of reading is getting a lot of press in mainstream society. What I wanted to be really, really careful of is to make sure that we picked a curriculum that truly was aligned to what we've learned about reading and the fact that kids really have to be exposed to complex text, strong vocabulary, discussions, and writing to those texts. I think there's a strong, if you remember back to when the Common Core first came out, a lot of curriculums sort of slapped the words Common Core aligned on the front of their textbooks and then made some tweaks and tried to resell them. If I've learned anything through this process and through talking to people is that you need to do the work yourself. You need to do the research. You need to do the piloting. You need to assess it for yourself and not just believe what you hear in the press or in the news or whatever. So why did we choose to focus on knowledge building curriculums? We know, and the research has shown, and this is research that I did myself, so I believe it. We know that background knowledge impacts reading comprehension. And I think I've shared with you last time we were together some of these studies that I was reading around, for example, the ones that are very well known at this point is called the baseball study, where if I give two students who have the same ability to decode a text about baseball and I ask them comprehension questions, the student who has more background knowledge about baseball is going to do better on the reading comprehension. The more interesting part of this study is that if I give a student who has, say their reading levels here, and I have a kid who has a little bit lower of a reading level, but has more background knowledge about baseball than this kid's comprehension is going to be higher. So that impact of reading comprehension or of background knowledge on comprehension is really important. Now, granted, one could say, well, how are you going to, like, you can't possibly learn every single thing that there is to learn so that you can ensure that the next passage you read is something you've read about. But what we also know is that knowledge is like Velcro. So if I have a lot of knowledge about one topic, I'm learning about another topic, I'm going to have more things to stick that new information to, and it's going to be easier for me to make those connections, learn more information. So the more knowledge I have, the easier it is for me to gain more knowledge. The other really important part is that we know that increasing background knowledge can help eliminate socioeconomic differences that we see. So right now in our MCAS, for example, we have a gap in our ELA performance between kids that are economically disadvantaged and kids that are not economically disadvantaged. That's at the state level. That's not a Danvers specific thing, but we definitely have that gap. And the other important thing I think to know is that since I started teaching in Danvers to now, our population of percent of students who are economically disadvantaged, sorry, there's vacuuming happening, has increased significantly in Danvers. So this is an important piece to note. When I started teaching fourth grade at Smith, we had 15% of our population was economically disadvantaged. I believe right now we're at a 25% or maybe a little higher. So our population has shifted. And so this is an important piece to note. The study that's most often referenced is called the WUG study, where they gave students a passage about butterflies, or I think it was birds actually. And the students who were not economically disadvantaged performed better on their reading comprehension about birds. Then they gave those same students a passage about wugs, which was a made-up animal. So we're taking that background knowledge out as a factor. And then there was no discrepancy in the reading comprehension of the two different socioeconomic groups. So all that being said, we are really starting to see a shift. The research is coming out around background knowledge building curriculums. The professional texts are shifting. So we're really in this very exciting time where this research has been here, but now we're acting on it. And that's a really important, I think, intersection that's happening, because there needs to be a connection between research and then what's happening in the K-12 system. And there can't be this disconnect that allows us to operate sort of without that research base. And the research is important and should be driving our decisions moving forward. Dan, can you go to the next slide? So we piloted, starting last spring, we piloted 3 knowledge building curriculums. All of the options were high quality instructional materials, meaning they were rated all green on gateways 1 and 2 in ed reports. I've listed the 3 programs that we piloted. We used portions from 2 different rubrics to guide getting our feedback in our thinking. We used portions of the curriculum evaluation tool from the Reading League and the culturally responsive curriculum scorecard out of NYU. The curriculum evaluation tool from the Reading League is a very large document that has lots of components. We focused on just the language comprehension, reading comprehension, and writing usability. The other components like foundational skills, we did not evaluate because that's not what we are hoping to achieve within the knowledge building curriculum. So based on all of that feedback and experience as we went through the process, we did land with a curriculum that's not as well known, that's not as sort of highly publicized. And the reason behind that is it is written in Boston and a nonprofit in Boston. So it does not have a huge publisher behind it. I can explain I think there's more too, Dan, if you keep going. Okay. Oh, this looks different than it did this morning. Okay. Can you click 2 more times, Dan? Okay. So this is a second model. This is the simple view of reading that I've used a couple times, but it's more teased apart. So you can see that the bottom part of the strand, those strands are the word recognition part. So all of those phonological, decoding, sight recognition, that's what we're using 95% core phonics for. The top part is that language comprehension piece, and that's the background knowledge, vocabulary, all those pieces, and that's what Fish Tank ELA allows us to address are those strands. So this is just a more complex view of the simple view of reading, but again, it's those 2 components of word recognition and language comprehension that work together to get you strong reading comprehension. And then if you go forward again. So a little bit about Fish Tank Learning ELA. Let's see, what's most important? The people who write this curriculum, we really like the building the knowledge, obviously, and the critical thinking, the learning to write and the writing to learn to the texts. Dan, if you keep going. Okay. Sorry, these are different than, is there a way I can share my slide? Sorry, these are different. I changed them today when I practiced. That's okay. I'm good. Okay. So Fish Tank Learning. this is the real reasons why we ended up with this choice. We really like the timing of it. That 60 minutes of daily kindergarten through 5th grade will allow us to still have an independent reading block time. We learned a lot of things through the piloting process, and one was that we felt like we didn't want to lose that piece of the day where students are practicing in text and practicing taking their work from phonics and applying that to text and practicing their actual reading. So yes, building that background knowledge and building the vocabulary and having those high level conversations, super important, but we also didn't want to lose that time for independent reading. So the timing of Fish Tank, some of the other programs we looked at had 90-minute blocks, 120-minute blocks, and that would make that very difficult for us to implement in our daily schedule. That will also allow us, the other thing I think that I learned through this process is we still really want to make sure we have a separate social studies science time so that kids are getting that hands-on, those science units. So even if we are teaching some of the science standards within the Fish Tank units, we want to make sure that students are still getting those hands-on experimental building, being involved in that scientific process at an additional time of the day. We also really liked that Fish Tank learning was that language comprehension component. Some things we looked at intertwined, the skills and the knowledge and the language comprehension, and that would have been tricky for us with our phonics program going kindergarten through 5th grade. It's also written in Massachusetts, so it's written towards the Massachusetts standards. So it'll be our only program we have that's actually written to Massachusetts standards versus National Common Core standards. And the final thing is, I think everyone could agree, we really like that the kids had real books in their hands, not contrived sort of written up books, but real books in their hands that we are using throughout the lesson. Dan, if you flip forward. Okay, so one thing I would be remiss if I did not say was that if I could do it again, I would do a lot of things differently. But one thing is that there were teachers who were on this journey with me from last spring, and 3 of them are on this call. And they have taken on 3 different curriculums in a matter of months, which is a lot to process, unpack, figure out how it works, implement new routines, and to completely shift your way after a unit and try something totally different is a lot of mental energy and a lot of time. So I would be remiss if I did not acknowledge that this experience was a lot for teachers, the teachers who engaged in this process, which was everyone at one point. So I was asking a lot, but everyone was willing to do it because I think we all knew the importance of this work, and we really wanted to make the best decision that we can for our students going forward. So I asked 3 teachers to hop on the call and just share for a minute their experience. They piloted all 3 programs, but I wanted them to share their experience with Fish Tank with you so you could get a little glimpse of what the students experienced with the curriculum. So Caroline, if you want to unmute and go first, we'll go in age order. Not your age, the student's age that you teach.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you so much for inviting me to speak tonight. My name is Caroline Cuna, and I teach 1st grade at Smith School. And the 1st grade team piloted Fish Tank's Folktales Around the World unit, where students are immersed in read-alouds of traditional folk tales and fables that teach life lessons, many of which are applicable to students' lives. The Fish Tank lessons provide read-aloud experiences that include the essential skills of making predictions, answering literal and inferential comprehension questions, examining text features and illustrations, and determining the theme or lesson of high-quality and engaging stories. After the read-aloud portion, reading and writing are then intertwined when children write in response to what Fish Tank calls a target task question, and that question has been discussed throughout the read-aloud. New writing skills can be taught during this portion of the lesson, and students are also provided the opportunity to transfer all of the skills that they're learning during our 95% core phonics to a more authentic writing experience. So throughout the fish tank pilot, I noticed that students were extremely engaged in the lesson topics and the read alouds. And because of their engagement, I've witnessed their reading and writing skills begin to blossom. So to summarize, I can tell you the first grade is absolutely thrilled beyond belief that we are proceeding with Fish Tank. And Julie, I want to thank you too for allowing us to pilot all of these curriculum with you and listening to our feedback and always being so receptive to it.
Thank you, Caroline. Okay, Amy.
Oh, good evening, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity, and thank you, Julie, as well. We've really enjoyed piloting all the different curriculums and being able to share our thoughts about them. So the second grade, we're at Great Oak, our second grade team has piloted the Habitats Fish Tank Unit in the fall. And we were really pleased with the curriculum materials. We enjoyed the age-appropriate texts. They were interesting. All of the students were able to have their own copy. And so it was a really tremendous reading experience because each student had their own Bobby Kalman, the author, who's been around for a long time, nonfiction habitat book of all the different habitats we read and learned about. And we were really pleasantly surprised to see even many of the reluctant readers volunteer to read, even though it was very difficult for some of them, as we utilized a shared reading routine when exploring each text. So that was really exciting to see. The online platform was really easy to navigate and provided manageable lesson outlines, teaching notes, and suggested unit activities. One of the things we really appreciated was that comparing this curriculum to the others, this curriculum was much less scripted than some we had used in the past. And this more flexible structure really allowed our team the autonomy to develop additional aspects of the lessons. We really were able to generate excitement and engagement with our classes as we were able to infuse each lesson with our own flair for the topics. One curriculum element that we also really liked was the selected target vocabulary for each lesson. As a team, we were able to create our own science journals with the students, and we modeled different vocabulary activities in our teacher journals that we made just like theirs. And the kids were then able to transfer and do that same vocabulary work in their science journals. And they kept talking about each other as scientists, and we talked about how scientists kept journals, and they just loved their science journals. We were also able to continue to utilize the science journals throughout the unit. We were able to extend their reading. We created digital Epic reading collections about habitats and different animals, so kids could explore on their own, and we were able to teach them and practice note-taking strategies from nonfiction texts. So that was a really exciting element that we kind of created that would align with the fish tank curriculum. Finally, as a team, we decided to revise our second grade animal research project that we had done in years past to match the objectives of the new fish tank unit. So we worked with Tina Marie Shekels, who's just like amazing, to create an animal habitat project, which involved student research skills, use of databases, and online text. I couldn't believe it as a former middle school teacher. I'm like, oh my gosh, we're going to use databases with second graders? It was incredible. And understanding nonfiction text features and note-taking for key information. We're almost done. We're nearing the completion of the projects and their animal slideshows on their animals and their habitats with key nonfiction questions. So they've prepared 7 slides with nonfiction information, pictures, and source citations. And the students' learning process and engagement has been so exciting to see in action. So we've really enjoyed it, and thank you again for the opportunity to share.
Thank you, Amy. And Leanne?
Hi, everyone. Me tonight about the fish tank. So as Julie said, I piloted all three, and I definitely liked this one the best for many reasons. So our third grade unit at Thorpe that we piloted was Rediscovering Thanksgiving, Fact versus Fiction. And we had essential questions in the unit that guided our work throughout. And I think there were a few, as I was trying to think of what to say tonight, my thoughts kind of fit into a few different categories. And one thing that I was really impressed with was the level of student engagement. The kids, even when, it was January and we were still talking about Thanksgiving, their interest level was really there. And the rigor that I also, I was a little nervous at first, I will say, because of the rigor and what seemed, the content. They had a little bit of background knowledge, but when you look at all of the learning that went on in the entire unit, the background knowledge that they went into it with was minimal. And they learned an incredible amount. The conversations that they were having, just the level of conversation, I've been doing this for many, many, many years, and I was just impressed with the higher level, what they were saying, not just spitting out facts, but talking about why things happened the way they did. They were exposed to a really nice variety of texts. They read letters from Pilgrim children, a journal type entry from a Wampanoag. We used the Magic Treehouse, the Fact Finders, and other nonfiction historical texts throughout the unit. And, we were comparing and contrasting the same topic, but throughout all of those different types of texts, and just seeing the different perspectives. And, they were really turning into activists when they would hear, oh my God, the Pilgrims stole their food. But then when you hear it from the Wampanoag point of view, it's, oh my God, I can't believe they did that. And just what they would talk about and banter about back and forth. And lots of writing every day. Obviously, this was an informational unit, so that's what we worked on this time. Everything based on text, which I wasn't going to bring up MCAS, but since Julie did, the writing in response to text is very in line with MCAS. So that, unfortunately, we do have to think about that. But something else that I really liked about it was my category was kind of teacher friendly, but then I thought, well, it doesn't really matter, to everybody if it's teacher friendly. The teacher should just figure it out. But what I liked in that category that I put there was that there were so many built-in supports for all learners. Because like I said, the text at the beginning, I thought they're never going to be able to access this text. But there were so many ideas of how you could change, modify, alter, but then enough room that you could also put your own personal spin on things as well. And for every lesson, there were plenty of suggestions of how you could support, individuals, but then also the whole class. And lots of tools and resources for not only the reading comprehension support, but the writing, provided lots of exemplars and rubrics, ideas to meet just not only the kids who struggle, but also the kids who are ready for enrichment. Lots of ideas for progress monitoring, fluency assessments. Just so much packed into it. When I was going back through to kind of make my list of what I wanted to mention, I thought, oh, I didn't even know that was in there. There was so much that you couldn't get to everything in just a pilot. And I did also like how we can build in our independent reading time, because obviously, children choosing just right books and what they choose to read is also very important. So I guess my biggest takeaways, the interest, the level of engagement, the amount of learning. I had parents telling me that, at the Thanksgiving dinner table, my child made a trivia game that we all had to participate in, and it included questions on all the different things that they learned. And, another one said, we get a dissertation at the dinner table every night, not just about what they learned, but just the thinking behind it,
and that whole perspective taking thing, you know, was just really nice to see. And they definitely loved it. We did, when I told them I was speaking tonight, we talked about the expeditionary learning, which was the first one that we did. And the kids like that too, but this one just definitely heads and tails above. And the kids loved it. Thank you.
Thank you, Leanne. And what Leanne did not share is that she is very close to retirement, and yet she still really wanted to be a part of this process. She's a continuous learner, and she's always like, yep, I want to be a part of it. What are we doing? I'm in. And the other part she's not telling you is the part she doesn't like about Fish Tank, or she does not think the slides are up to her standards. So I'm sure she's taking all the Google slides that are provided and ramping them up to her expectations. But so I can't thank the three of them enough. The response from teachers was pretty overwhelming. I actually did not have this program on the table, but the response from piloting the first program in the fall made me go back to the table, look at all the knowledge building curriculum options again, and think through. I think what really, we collected feedback as we went since last spring, but one teacher response that stands out to me, not from a teacher on this call, but saying, I finally feel like I'm teaching again. And that sentence for me was really powerful. So anyway, we've put a lot into this, and the teachers have put a ton of time into it. So thank you to all the teachers who have been in this and along the journey, which hasn't been linear or easy. So Dan, if you want to go to the next slide, I think I'm almost done. Oh, this was, if you go back one, Dan, this was a quote that I got from a parent at Thorpe who was just reaching out to share about the her students' experience at Thorpe in third grade with the Fish Tank curriculum. So I just added that in, but we can keep going, Dan, that's fine. So moving forward, there's sort of two things that are happening. We are using our knowledge block from January till June to teach science and social studies standards using our Amplify Science units, our primary source civics units, and everyone is doing at least one Fish Tank unit from January till June. So all students and all teachers will have experienced a Fish Tank unit before June, which will allow it to not be completely new in the fall. We're also working through the budget process to purchase Fish Tank ELA curriculum units for 24-25. And I think the important thing to notice about this is that it is an open education resource. So the lessons are free on the internet, but there is an enhanced experience that we can purchase, which we did for the pilot, and we would like to going forward. That allows us to have access to the slides, and the lesson plans are more fleshed out, and there's some other additional bonuses that come when you purchase the digital enhanced package, but it is an open resource. So really the cost is buying the books, like Mrs. Roy talked about, the books that are in the students' hands, which are real books like these. This is what second grade's using now, and each kid has one of these. So again, you're not purchasing through a publisher. Fish Tank just gives you the list of books, and then you go on Amazon and you purchase the books. So in terms of cost and implementation, it is significantly less expensive than a sort of a reading program through a publisher, et cetera, et cetera. So those are the big things moving forward. That is our presentation for tonight.
Thank you, Julie. We appreciate it. So I don't know if the school committee, if they have any questions for Julie.
Well, Madam Chair, if I may, I do. Well, first of all, let's back up a little bit. We also heard the presentation on the equity side of the coin, so to speak, and we shouldn't sell that short, I think. I appreciate all the information that was presented on what we're doing. And Mary, I hope we can find ways to share that directly with the Inclusion Committee, because I know they've had an interest and a constant interest in this work. And whether that involves a brief presentation to them I'll be in touch with Dee and we could talk about that, but
Sure, that'd be great.
more that we can share with them would be the better, I think.
Yeah, I think that framework, the 4 domains in the framework.
Yes, exactly. And as to the reading piece, thank you for all the work that you're doing. And as one school committee member, I come at this knowing 2 things. Number one, I'm no expert in reading in terms of what will work. We're not professionally educated in this. So to some extent, but on the other hand, I firmly believe and really know that a child's ability to read is really, like I say, it sounds trite to say it's the foundation, but it really is the foundation of any other learning that goes on. If you looked at someone's intellectual life like a house, and there would be rooms for professional things, there would be room for art and room for music and room for hobbies, room for all those things that you like. Each house would have those rooms, but the foundation for it all, the only thing that would hold all that is reading. It's what everything else is built upon. And if we want good citizens in the future who can critically solve problems, they have to be able to read. You have to be able to take in the written word and analyze it. There's no substitute for that. And your ability to read is going to determine very much where you go in life. So the idea that we need to, identify issues and make sure that we're doing it right in those early grades, that K-2 period, it's inarguable. It's something that we've got to do and we have to get it right. So what I like, given that I'm not, a reading professional, what I appreciate, Julie, from you and your team is that this has obviously been a very thoughtful process to identify, test, and pick a curriculum that will work and that we can stick with and get to success with our students. So that's what I appreciate. I appreciate the work that you have put in, and not just you, but everybody on your team, to find what you believe is the right curriculum. And from my own standpoint, I trust the work and I trust your judgment based upon this. It's obvious that you all have a passion and a love for what you're doing and trying to make things happen for your students. So I appreciate that. I hope you'll keep us updated as you progress through the curriculum and give us reports and updates as to how it's working. And obviously, we want to look at on a continuing basis how students are progressing toward grade level. But I firmly believe nothing else is going to happen good for our students without that foundation in reading. So I thank you for what you're doing. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. I just got the tail and I froze, Mr. Crane. So, but no, I also want to thank the teachers for piloting. I know it's a ton of work. I'm glad that, Julie, you did allow the teacher input, because I know when you make a decision, that doesn't also go well. So it's really owned. And I love that there is going to be time for kids to still do independent reading, because that's, like Julie said, there's a lot of ones that are like 90 minutes, and that takes away from then the independent piece with the kids and the personalization. Just one quick thing too, going back to the equity piece. I know we talked about cultural read alouds too. A couple families had asked if we could resend the letter of what the next ones are, just because it was way back in the fall, just as a reminder. And just kind of also thinking about that I know admin has gotten a lot of work done, received a lot of training on as far as culture responsive teaching, but I just wonder how much the teachers have, and I want to make sure that we're really looking at that too, because we are asking a lot from teachers, and I don't want to say, well, we did this a couple times or for a couple hours and that's it, and that's one and done, because this should be really an ongoing process from an equity standpoint with the training. So that's more for central office, but
Julie does do the Julie and the curriculum team does do professional development prior to every culture responsive text series that they're doing.
Julie, do you run it though, or is it an outside person?
That would be us.
And
you did both in the past, last year she did both.
But I mean, Robin, to your point, we can resend the letter, absolutely. Violetta, can you just add that to our doc? And
Already done.
Thank you. To the training portion, it is something that we know we need to get back to. It was our focus a couple of years ago, but I've had a little bit of tunnel vision on the reading, and I'm like, nope, nothing else matters. We have to do this. We have to figure this out. And so we do meet with grade levels before every single ADL unit, review the lessons, talk about what we're doing, what we're not doing. But we really do, it is, if you could see the board behind me, it's on our ongoing list of how do we integrate that work and come back to those conversations and that learning. Absolutely.
Yeah, I just think like that's also asking a lot from you, right? Because that's not your, professional wheelhouse as far as like some of those topics. And so I think like there needs to also be outside PD for teachers. Like we're also putting in a lot on you to train the teachers, and that's not appropriate for you either. So
we did work closely with Safe Schools at the beginning of this work, and we did have some speakers come in, but you're correct that it has been a couple of years. And the state is offering training soon. I'm signed up to go to it soon, I believe. So again, it is, Robin, you're correct that it does need to be sort of part of our ongoing work. And I've had pretty strong tunnel vision on the reading. And so, but it is part of our balance that we need to incorporate.
Thank you. Gabe, I saw your hand up.
Yeah, I'll unmute myself, and sorry, folks, if you can't hear me too clearly, but it's not so much a question, but a comment. And Julie and team, no one will ever accuse you of not being prepared for these presentations. It was only a few years ago where parents would continuously reach out and ask what is happening with reading, what is happening with the curriculum, and the level of detail and thoughtfulness and passion that you and the team not only deliver in the schools, but during the school committees are just really excellent. And I can't appreciate that more. And I just want to say that as a parent of two students that is literally benefiting from all the work that you're doing, seeing the change from the original reading curriculum to what you folks are doing today has been night and day. And I hope a bunch of other parents are experiencing it. I will say that I haven't received a call in months about challenges with reading or issues with the reading curriculum or the efforts that the teachers are putting in. So kudos to you on that. And lastly, I'll say kudos to you and your team for pivoting, for staying current and not being able to make changes mid-year, not just sticking with something to go with it. I know it's harder and sometimes it can be tougher and frustrating, but just the fact that you folks are willing to, pause, reflect, and go in another direction is right. That's education. It's, learning, pivoting, and, doing the next best thing. So I really, really appreciate that. And I want to just say, I completely agree with everything that Eric and the chairwoman said a couple minutes ago. Every time you come up and speak, it's completely, impressive. And I know the whole community and the whole committee appreciate everything you do. So thank you.
Anyone else? All right. Well, thank you, everyone. Thank you for coming. Thank you, teachers. Glad it was virtual for you. So if you're welcome to stay on, you can leave. It's really up to you. But thank you so much for all the work you do and continue to do. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll move on to our next piece, but I want to also say thank you to Julie and her team, and thank you to our teachers that came out tonight, and just, from the background and Mary Wormers and her leadership too. Thank you for your support, and there's a lot of heart and effort that go into it, so we appreciate it. We're going to transition now into the last update, and that is with our webpage update. And Mr. Jim Sullivan, our Director of Technology and Technology Integration, is coming aboard here. He's going to walk you through just a quick overview of the updates and such, and there'll be more updates as we go, but we thought it was a good time for him to come aboard. And Mrs. Sullivan, you ready?
I'm ready. Can you hear me?
You got it.
Excellent. Good evening, everybody. Jim Sullivan, Director of Technology. I'm excited to be back and provide you with an update on our website improvement project. It's been several months since the last time I provided an update, and pleased to share that we've made significant progress on the development of our new website and making the improvements. The last meeting that I was at, we discussed some of the needs and the priorities that were brought up by the committee as well as the community as a whole with our survey that we conducted last year. And I think the best way to provide the update is to even give you a little bit of a sneak preview on our website that's going to be going live hopefully at the end of February is what it was our goal right now. So I am going to share my screen and introduce you to what will be the new danverspublicschools.org. Can you see my screen? Perfect. All right, we're on a roll. So one of the key priorities that was brought forward with our new website, or what we want to see on a new website, is we want to see students. And when you visit danverspublicschools.org, this is the district page, and you are immediately greeted with different spotlight news that will be provided here with the picture that goes along with it. And the goal will be that we have a few, probably 3 to 4 recent updates that'll be available as spotlights and events that are available right on the homepage when you land here. And scrolling down a little bit, you can see that we have just some general text, but also some, we're going to continue with the photos to be able to provide pictures, recent events as often as we can. Another one of the priorities was the district calendar and being able to see the calendars and what's going on in the district. So if I click on before I click on that, you can see these are some of the most current events that are upcoming that are on our district calendar. But if I click on the calendar link as well, this is going to provide me with an update of anything that's upcoming on our calendar. So I can filter the calendars so you can see that I have all of the school calendars available. But if I'm perhaps a family that only has students at 2 of our schools, I could actually choose to show just the Riverside and maybe the high school calendar, for example, just the DHS. So you can see, you can choose the calendars that you want to see and make all or nothing available to you as well. Right here, available on the calendar page, I have the ability that I can subscribe. I can add this to my own Google Calendar if I want, so it'll give me a copy of the events as they're updated right there on my device as well. And I have quick access to see the lunch menus, the athletic schedules, as well as the printable district calendar that's right here on the district calendar page. I'm going to jump back to the home page for a minute. Up at the top here, we have our standard navigation, so we can see these menus will fly out based on the different options that are available so our different school sites, some of our departments that are district-wide, and resources that are broken up for the different state groups of stakeholders, being the staff, the parents, and the students. Another piece of the community survey, which was important, was to make it easy to find contact information for staff members. So on our current website, the only way to do this was you had to know which school you were looking for in order to get the contact information out of our directory. But now we have a district-wide directory, and I can search all of the staff if I want to, and I can scroll through. Or if I do know where the person is located, I could actually filter it down by school, and then everything is in alphabetical order. So we do now have a district-wide directory instead of it breaking it down by school, which is one of the things that we were interested in doing. Jumping back here also as well, the website will have the ability to translate into a wide selection of languages, which will convert it automatically. So it doesn't matter which language you're looking for. If there's something missing, but we can actually add that as well. I believe Google has access to most of the languages already set up in their Google Translate. And one of the other pieces that will be available down in the bottom right-hand corner, which isn't there right now just because it's not published yet, is our accessibility features. So the website will also have the ability to access screen readers or different types of tools for those who may need some assistance with viewing the information on our website. Scrolling back down, just to continue on, we just talked about the calendar. But also here on the district homepage, you have the ability to quickly access some of the athletic information for the district, as well as the school lunch program. So these were also two of the pieces from the community survey that were deemed as very important that people come to our website looking for. So at the simple click, I'd be able to click on the team schedules, which I'll show you that in just a minute. Or on the right-hand side, I can also pull up the lunch menus, which are updated and brings it directly into the food services website. So the latest and greatest is always available. And then down towards the bottom, we also have a district news slider, which these are different posts and updated weekly information that's posted on the website. You can see some of our school committee meetings, some of the bus route information are available here to scroll through. And these are just, I think, the top 10 are shown at any given time. And then it brings us down to our footer, which has our contact information and also links for our schools. But I'm going to scroll up just for a minute. And I also wanted to give you just a preview. We'll preview the Danvers High School website as well as one of our schools. So the high school has a very similar, all of our schools will have a very similar layout to the one at the district level, but it will have information that is specific to that school. And so you can see we start with our spotlight. We're focusing on our students again. We're focusing on activities and the achievements of our students. So we can see there's a class of 2024 post. And as well, and this is actually another link, but we'll, just like the district website, we'll have the ability to post, some of the most recent spotlights to keep that information up to date. Scrolling down, you can see there's a very similar layout. You can view the high school calendar. This is linked automatically, as well as athletics, and some connections to social media, as well as some photos and some stats. So these are things that can be routinely updated as well. Coming back up, I am going to jump to the athletics. And one of the things that we did when we were building out our new website, since athletics information was one of the priorities that was identified by the community, we did create a custom look and feel for our athletics page to make sure that we can provide all of the information that the community is looking for. So right up at the top, we have some quick links to talk about program guides, registering for teams, the team schedules, as well as links as we scroll down to all of the different sports that are available for each season. But I'll jump to the team schedule because this was one of the things that was identified, but we link that information in directly to our new website so that we can see exactly when and where all of the games are playing. So it doesn't matter if you're on the district homepage, doesn't matter if you're at Danvers High School, you can get easy access to that information when you need it. And one of the other things that is important is, as we identified some of those priorities being the lunch schedule, the calendars, the directory, athletics, on all of our websites, no matter what school you're on, or if you're on the district page, up in the top right-hand corner, you have this little yellow or gold box with the 3 lines in it. And this will provide you with quick links to that information from any site. So it doesn't matter where you are on our website. If you want to view the staff directory, if you want to go to the athletics page, if you want to see the lunch menu, you can click on it right from here, and it will take you right to that piece of information. So that's the quick update. We're very excited. We've made, I think, significant progress since the last time that we've met. And, thank you again for, the information and the guidance to get us this far. The goal is to go live with our website towards the end of February. Right now, we're going through and we're going through all of the content to make sure it's accurate, to make sure it's up to date. And we're getting ready for the go live, which is awesome. And just, I'll say a shout out and a thank you as well to all of the principals and the administrative staff at all of the schools, because they are helping us go through all that information to make sure that everything is ready to go. So it's a team effort, and I'm grateful for all of the support. Happy to answer any questions or if there's any feedback with the website.
I think this looks amazing. I don't really have anything else to say. That it's amazing. It's really user friendly, and I think it really highlights the schools in a variety of different ways. So thank you to you and the team. But I'm excited for it to launch. So
thank you. Me too.
I don't know if anyone else has any comments or questions.
Yeah, Madam Chair, just one quick comment and a question. I think the look and feel of it's awesome. I think it's a major upgrade. And the only question that I have is there a plan to launch this and kind of get the word out that we do have this new resource when we're ready to go?
Yeah, so we're working on finalizing the specific day, but the plan is probably around February vacation or the end of February. Just as long as we're technically speaking, we're ready to go. And I think part of the launch or the announcement will probably come through the superintendent's update, but we could also in social media. But we could also do more of a specific release as well if there's interest for that.
Great, awesome, thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, if I could, I assume there's a plan, Jim, for updating this at the district level and also at every school level to keep the content current. And I'm just wondering, can you tell us about that plan? Is there a person at each school who's going to be tasked with this as part of their regular work? How is that going to work?
Yes, so at the district level, we have a person who helps us specifically with updating the content on the district page, the district sites, and she's going to be working very closely with our social media person as well. So as information is released on one platform or the other, the goal is for them to work together to make sure that we update the content in both places as appropriate. And speaking specifically to like the spotlights and the events on the homepage, I think the goal is to have 3 or 4 updates or pieces of information at any given time, and probably update those on a routine or probably a monthly basis. I think is sort of our goal, and then at the school level, we are working with the principal and the administrative staff to make sure that we do those routine updates, and the district content manager is able to assist them with the ongoing updates as well. So between the school administrative staff, the district content person, and the social media coordinator, it's a group effort to make sure that we keep the content as updated as possible. Okay,
because it looks like you've got the ease of use piece, you get the potential for really good content. And to me, if there's a third leg of the stool, it's making sure that it is, that our websites are always current. And that's the one place that I think you probably have to watch out for as you go forward.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay. Well, I think that's it. So thank you, Jim. You're welcome to stay on. You can leave, whatever you feel you'd like to do. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you. All right. So we have new business. So I know the superintendent has a recommendation.
Yes, Madam Chair. The superintendent makes a recommendation to approve the high school program of studies for a first reading. And we have with us tonight our curriculum director, Mr. Peter Demaro, and principal, DHS principal, Mr. Adam Federico. And we have a couple of slides here. So if they can come aboard, and we'll begin.
So we just need a motion from the committee for a first reading.
Motion for a first reading.
Okay.
Second.
All right. Thank you. All right.
Awesome. All right. Okay. All right, Mr. Zamaro, Mr. Federico, floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Bauer. So we are gearing up for a course selection season, which is always a fun time at the high school as students get to look ahead to what exciting courses they might want to take for the next year. As always, as we've done over the past several years, we're always looking at what opportunities exist to expand upon the course offerings we already have. What advanced level courses can we promote? What introductory courses can we put on the books? So I have a couple slides to review some of the new offerings that we have in different areas, and then one brief policy change that we made in regard to honor roll. So here is a summary of the new courses that we're adding for this year. In ELA, we have a new course called The Power of the Story. This will be one of the grade 12 courses that will be available as a senior elective option. Once students get to the senior level, they have the option to choose from a variety of courses. I think at this point we're at about 8 or 9 courses to really hone in on an area that is important to them. So this course really will focus on the power of a story and how the impact of characters, plots, and all of the elements of a story can have that connection to the different things that they see in their everyday life. In terms of math, in reflection of our data analysis that we did in the fall, we noticed that some of the standards that students were weakest on in terms of our local assessments and state assessments was algebra, which makes sense because before they go into the high stakes assessments, the majority of students are coming out of geometry. So we want to pilot a new course called Algebra Review, and we want to pilot that with a small group of students starting next year to fill in that gap after they receive their initial algebra instruction that they take concurrently with the geometry course. And our hope is that will fill in any gaps and offer a refresher in some of those standards that they covered in the previous year. For social studies, we're adding in a second course in a sequence that we started last year. Last year, we piloted a new course for 9th graders called World History for Creative and Visual Thinkers. So another member of the department that teaches sophomores thought it would be great if students that learn in a more problem-based approach or project-based approach wanted to continue that. We could do that at the sophomore level as well. So we want to pilot US History 1 for creative and visual thinkers. And as I explained last year, it'll be the same content for the US History course as other students are getting. The real difference will be in the mode of output in terms of the assignments, in terms of how the students explore and address those standards. For world language, we have a couple of cool, exciting new opportunities. Prior to this year, for students to start on our French track, they would have had to have taken French in middle school to start right in with French 2 or into French Intermediate 2. But we're hoping to be able to maintain the program that we have at the high school, both at the beginner level and the advanced level, by adding a novice French course. So that would mean that any student that does not have any prior experience in the language can start either their freshman year or in a future year if they don't start right away in the freshman year. That will allow them a path into taking the language. We're also adding a second course in a sequence for Spanish for native and heritage learners. So this will be the second course in that sequence. This year, we are teaching the Spanish for native and heritage learners 1. We have 2 members of the world language faculty that have been working very diligently to make sure that that curriculum is built and implemented, and they've done a ton of work for that. And so our hope is to continue to expand this to a second year to eventually offer them on a rotating basis. And then our hope is that eventually students that are in this pathway would then go on to take AP Spanish their junior or senior year. And then lastly, in our business department, we're offering Accelerated DECA 1. This is for students that know they have an interest or passion in business. We've really done a lot to create a 4-course sequence in our DECA pathway last year. This is for students that know they might want to go on to the competition at the state level or further, and then take the DECA 3 Advanced Entrepreneurship course or Project Management Essentials as seniors. And then lastly, Money Matters is our personal finance course. This was the first year that we implemented it in a new way, and we realized that we have a lot of content to cover, so we want to split it into 2 semester courses, Money Matters 1, which this was the first year that we implemented that, but then also create a second semester that students can also take, and they don't need to take 1 to take 2. it's just an additional opportunity for students to learn concepts related to personal finance. And if you could switch to the next slide. And then I just also wanted to provide another brief summary around our ESL programming. So as I'm sure many of you are aware, we've had a huge increase, probably more than quadruple the multilingual learners that we've had in previous years. So we did a lot of work at the beginning of this year in preparation to create courses that these students will be able to schedule for to best support their needs. But moving forward, we both wanted to codify some of the coursework that we already have in place, as well as continue to think about how are we looking at our ESL programming as a whole and what we have in our program of studies. So I know Mary, myself, our ELL teachers have looked closely at other models in terms of what we think we can do structurally and staffing wise to support our ELL students moving forward. So we sort of see two pathways, one being our actual English classes based on proficiency level. So we would have newcomer ESL, emerging ESL, and intermediate ESL. And that would be based on what levels they're at. And then also based on their English proficiency, and this is part of the stuff we still have to flesh out, and this may change from year to year, have content-specific newcomer courses based on the needs of the students that we have in the school at that current time. And that would be taught by an ESL teacher. And for students that can participate in our SEI program, which is for Sheltered English Immersion, these would be courses that are co-taught with a general education teacher and an ESL co-teacher. And so these three courses right here are ones that we're piloting this year for the first time: SEI Algebra, SEI Biology, and SEI Civics. So as students move up their proficiency levels, they may shift to these SEI courses that are co-taught with the general education teacher. So we wanted to make sure that we have these in place moving forward, but we're also planning on meeting with our ESL teachers and content teachers from this year that are currently teaching the courses to brainstorm about what specific skills or needs our students may have moving forward, and what best placement we should think about moving forward in terms of what specific area in each department would be best for the SEI program that we're building. Just wanted to provide a brief summary about that, as it's something that we're piloting for the first time this year. But then also we're going to continue, obviously, to assess and audit moving forward as the needs of our students change from year to year. And then I have one more slide. This is just a quick policy change. So at one of our teacher leader meetings in the fall, we noticed that our honor roll criteria is actually different from the middle school's honor roll criteria. So we wanted to sort of vertically align and be consistent. I also did an audit of other area schools. I looked at the honor roll criteria for about 10 or 12 other local school districts. And so we just wanted to change our honor roll language to best reflect what other schools have and what the middle school has, and that is students earning all A's or all 90s and above will be designated as high honors, and students earning all A's and B's or 80s, 90s and above will be honors. So just a small tweak, but just like I said, wanted to be consistent and representative of what other districts near us are also doing. And that is it. Those are the big additions and changes for this upcoming year.
Thank you, Peter. So now we can move on to like the discussion with questions or comments. I'm excited for the new courses, and I think that it's great that you folks are already ahead of like with our changes that we might need more SEL courses and what that might look like. And, you know, instead of just saying, okay, you're going to be in English class and you're going to get like support here and there, you know, so it seems like you have a clear already framework, which I love. The other thing, because this is me, I was looking at the program of studies and I was so happy that nowhere in there, whether it was CP or honors or AP, said, you know, students should expect an hour of homework per night, because like that is at the beginning of my existence. And I love it because now we know like, all right, that doesn't mean that you should be in an honors class, and it's really about rigor. And some kids might take longer, some kids might finish, you know, so I was really happy because I think a lot of high schools are still in that where it's like, expect this amount for this amount of time. So I was happy to see that. I guess just the one thing to think about, and I don't know if this has been like an issue throughout the years, if we have a class, like, is there a cap where we're saying if we don't have X amount of kids enrolled in a class, are we not running it? Or are we like I'm just thinking out loud. Let's say there was like, you know, physics honors and like AP, and we didn't have, we had 5 kids in like physics honors, would we merge those classes together and like differentiate? I didn't know if we had a cap or if we had thought about that. I don't even know, Peter, if that's a question for you or if
No, it
you
definitely is. No, I think that is something we look at closely, I think, over the summer and as we head into fall. I think once sort of the schedule changes settle down, the first couple of weeks are really big for students working with their guidance counselors to make any adds or drops or changes to their schedule. That's usually when we sit down and look at, what courses are under like 6, I would say, is the big cap that we look at. And typically, if it's below that, we consider not running it and giving the teacher an alternate assignment or condensing or collapsing. But it is something we take a close look at and run reports to make sure that we're really capitalizing on the staffing that we have and can utilize members of each department the most strategic that we can. And in cases where we do have extra in staffing schedule, if a class doesn't run and they have an extra spot, we may then use them to support some of our specialized program, whether it be our drive program, our TLC program, or if there is like an advanced level course that they could teach, that's usually where we're able to place it.
And I would just add that, our teaching staff is so great and so flexible. If there's a unique situation where one student needs one extra class to fit in, we have a really strong independent study model where a student and a teacher can work together to create the time to make a course happen or make an instructional experience happen. So I think we're able to help out even some of those, unique kiddos that maybe have 5 or 6 AP courses. We're able to make it all work together.
Thank you. Anyone else from the committee? Questions, comment?
Now, as an incoming parent of a freshman, looking forward to next Monday night's parent night at the high school and, seeing some of this come alive throughout the hallways. So looking forward to that.
Yes, we look forward to seeing you there and talking about these classes more.
Okay, so Ms. Ingraham, we just need now a roll call that this is the first reading.
Robin Doherty?
Yes.
Alice Campbell?
Yes.
Eric Crane? Eric Crane?
He thumbs up.
He's thumbs up.
Kepnes?
Yeah. Yes.
Gabe Lopes?
Yes.
Thank you. So we are on the monthly budget report. All right, Pam.
Hello.
Hi.
Thanks for having me. I shared with you the December budget report, so through the month of December. And things are looking much as they were the last time we spoke about the budget. There are a couple of areas that we are experiencing challenges, much as we did last year, much as we discussed in November. Those areas are in the categories of tuition to out-of-district private schools, largely private schools, sometimes also the consortiums, and also in transportation. And I would just say that transportation has been perhaps even more of a challenge for us this year, not only with our out-of-district placement special ed students, but also some of the homeless transportation that we provide, and even athletic trips, even getting our athletic teams places. We've had to contract out privately for more of those trips. There's been a challenge we ordered a couple of new vans for the district a couple of years ago, and the supply chain issues with getting those vans has been really, really challenging. So we've had to source a lot of that stuff out. So we're keeping a close eye on all of these things. The state is aware we're not unique in this situation. The state has let us know that they are going to try to expedite some of the reimbursements that they typically provide to offset the previous year's, for example, homeless transportation expenditures. And they're going to try to get those dollars to us sooner rather than later so that we can count on them for settling up this year's accounts. But we're keeping an eye on it, and it looks like we'll be able to cover where we are right now.
Right, thank you. Anyone have
questions about the budget report?
You're always very thorough, Pam. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
I think we're good. So I feel bad. People who are on, I'm sorry, you can always leave after you present. I hope you know that. I didn't make that comment out loud, but like, I feel bad. People have been here all night and they didn't have anything else to say. So please don't feel like you have to stay. So thank you. So we are now on to order of new business.
All right, the secretary moves to approve and release the minutes from the January 8th, 2024 regular meeting and approve but not release the January 8th, 2024 executive session minutes.
Second.
Okay. Second. So we need a roll call, please.
Robin Doherty,
Yes.
Alice Campbell,
Yes.
Eric Crane,
Yes.
Josh Kepnes,
Yes.
Gabe Lopes.
Yes.
Okay. So now we are on the consent agenda. So that's, I believe, still you, Miss Campbell.
Motion to approve the donations, field trip requests, and personnel memo.
Second.
All right. So another roll call, please.
Gabe Lopes,
Yes.
Josh Kepnes,
Yes.
Eric Crane,
Yes.
Alice Campbell,
Yes.
Robin Doherty.
Yes. Do we have any updates on communications or NEC updates? I know we gave some last month, but.
Yeah, we did have a kind of a meeting before the actual meeting, board meeting that is coming up, and more just along the lines of just preparing for the increases that will be coming down the road for the assessment, as well as increases to the Kevin O'Grady and the consortium tuitions and how we can utilize circuit breaker for that. So more information will be coming on that.
Thank you. Eric, I know you gave some updates last month about legislation. I don't know if you have additional, or earlier this month, rather.
Just earlier this month, we had found out, I think just before our last meeting, that the governor was proposing around $347 million in cuts to the state budget. I have confirmed that those cuts did not include any cuts to the education budget.
Oh, that's great then. Okay.
It's good news.
Yeah. Okay. Subcommittee, we did go over, the curriculum and equity. We obviously spoke about that. Policy, there is nothing new. I'm not missing anything, right?
That'll be our next meeting, which I think is bumped to March on that.
Okay. We have our safety committee next Monday, so we'll have updates at the meeting after that. Deep.
Mary attended the last meeting, but they had a wonderful fundraiser at Texas Roadhouse, and looking forward to the teacher grants that will be coming out shortly.
Danvers Cares?
Deep wine tasting in March. They'll probably want us to. And the tickets will be available February 1st.
All right, thank you. And then Danvers Cares?
They have an upcoming meeting, but they're promoting the Healthy Relationships webinar that's coming out. So I put that in the last update, and our principals did too. And more work will be coming down the road of making connections with trusted adults. There looks to be in March a public meeting on that. So stay tuned.
Thank you. CPAC, Josh?
No update since last meeting.
Okay. And then Eric, Danvers Human Rights and Inclusion.
I will say that Josh was called away to New York suddenly, and I was supposed to cover the meeting for him that night. And while on town hall steps, I got a call from home and could not attend the meeting. But again, we have, I think your update today was great, Mary. And again, anything we can do to share that information with their committee, I'm sure would be appreciated. Thank you.
If you don't mind, Madam Chair, I did attend the last meeting.
Oh, good.
And a lot of it was reflection and just feedback from the Moving Like King, the Martin Luther King celebration. It was all very positive. There was a big shout out for Mary Wormers and the work leading her team that led the setup and the collaboration with the Human Rights and Inclusion Committee. And just very proud of the speakers and the change. So there'll be more tweaks for next year, but overall, it was very positive feedback on the event, and looking forward to more events in the near future.
Great. Okay, well, if no one has anything else, our next meeting is obviously the budget workshop. It is in person, February 12th. We are starting an hour earlier, so 5:30. So just please note that time, and hopefully we will have that done. The workshop. We're starting at 5:30, so we don't have to come back on the 13th. So, yeah. So, thank you. Good night, Danvers. Thank you, DCAT, for broadcasting, and everyone have a good night.
Move to adjourn, Madam Chair.
Yes.
Second.
So, roll call.
Robin Doherty,
Yes.
Alice Campbell,
Yes.
Eric Crane,
Yes.
Josh Kepnes,
Yes.
Gabe Lopes.
Yes.
Thank you. Good night, Danvers.